Hi, everybody. My name is Michaela Ferrante. This is Eric Jenkins, and we are the co-founders of Bloom & Co. Property Management.
Today is our 6th episode of Industry Spotlight, and we are interviewing VendorPM. Today we're speaking with Emil Brill. Emil, why don't you take it away and explain your position at VendorPM, what it's all about?
Yeah, I'm happy to. Do you want me to just give the quick background, the origin story, and just a little more context?
Yeah. Well, we're great at
happy to,
as you just learned, so,
Yes, fair enough. Okay, so, a story actually starts back when I was 14. It was a bit of a crappy family situation, so I had to help out and make some money, and I didn't know where to go, what to do at 14. So I literally just started going door to door in my neighborhood. I was selling window cleaning services to my neighbors. And I'm like, oh, you can make money doing this. This is great. And so I ended up bringing my friends, they brought theirs. And, throughout high school, we ended up growing this residential window cleaning company. We were doing about 10,000 homes a summer. And then that was sort of how I got into the property management world, right? So I had done the single family home, the homeowner path for quite a while. And then I wanted to start selling to property managers. And so that's where I started selling to, of course, to condo buildings, to office buildings, hotels, apartments. And that transition from a single family home to a condo building, it really opened up my eyes. To clean the windows at your house might be $100, $200, but of course a building could be 10, 20,000. Contracts on Bay Street could be in the millions. And so I had this sticker shock, and I thought to myself, well, if a management company is willing to spend this much money to make their windows shine and sparkle, how much are they spending on literally every other building service? And it's insane. It's over $400 billion in North America per year, right? And because I sat on the vendor side of this dynamic, I work with thousands of buildings. I was looking at this massive market that's just completely manual and offline. Like we know that working with vendors is just heavily reliant on email, Excel, and word of mouth. And that's how it's always been.
Everything gets lost, doesn't get updated. Yeah.
Exactly. There's no system of record. The whole process is manual. The way one building does it could be different from the next. So how is an owner of a property management company able to look at this information and make good decisions? They're unable to. Right. And again, because I sat on the vendor side of this dynamic, I saw that it was completely offline. I saw that the pain points really lied with the property managers, not even so much the vendors. And so this massive market, real pain point, I said, I want to solve this. So in January of 2020, I went out and I raised some capital from a fund in Silicon Valley. I put together the first version of VendorPM, which was very, very crappy at the time. And I want to take this opportunity to thank all of those early customers that believed in us, despite the fact that, things were just getting started. But VendorPM in January of 2020 is very different than what it is today. So we started out as just a two-sided marketplace. Think about like a HomeStars as an example, but for our industry specifically. Now, what was exciting is in those first early months when we launched this two-sided marketplace, hundreds of vendors were joining, dozens of property managers were joining. They were rating and reviewing these vendors. They were requesting quotes. So we got that early, let's use the word validation, that there's something here, right? And as we started getting more and more validation, we started hearing from the Aarons and the Michaelas of the industry. They pick up the phone and call us and say, look, I don't know what this VendorPM thing is, but my staff are raving about this. Let's talk about getting all of our people on here. Let's talk about getting all of our preferred vendors, all of our existing vendors on here. And of course, I want dashboards and analytics and reports and all the things that a real enterprise property management company would ask for. So that was really interesting because the team and I, was like 3 or 4 of us at the time, we're sitting in the boardroom with a whiteboard trying to figure this out and kind of stumbled ass backwards into what would be our inflection point. So you see, we pivoted from this two-sided marketplace to what we call a software-enabled marketplace, meaning we built this vendor management, sourcing, procurement, and compliance platform for the Bloom & Co's of the world, right? But now when you partner with a property management company, they bring all of their vendors and all of their property managers. And so those assets get compounded by the network effects in our marketplace. And before you knew it, we were at over 5,000 buildings across Canada, 35,000 vendors. As we were just speaking about before we started recording, we're actually just closing our Series A funding now, which will be around the 20 million mark. And the whole idea is to take us from the 70 employees we're at today to 170 within the next 12 months to expedite our expansion throughout Canada, throughout the US. And
how fast you guys are growing as far as like,
we were like, I feel like every week you guys are posting a new employee thing. We're like, that's so cool.
They're doing really well. It's amazing.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, we also want to be able to listen to every single one of our customers and users, and we want to build for them. We don't want to think, oh, here's a problem, let's go solve it. We want to hear from you and understand, cool, VendorPM, you solve problems 1, 2, 3. Let's talk about solving problem number 4, right? It doesn't make sense to have 20 logins for 20 different platforms. You should be able to consolidate as much within one amazing one-stop shop as possible. And so that's certainly what we're building.
Yeah, it's been honestly using the platform has been great. So we're obviously consumers of VendorPM. New too. We've only been using it for a month, so we've only had to send out a couple quotes. But it's been such a streamlined process, which we've never experienced before. Like we were saying before, it's been really nice. And like you were saying about, you actually care about wanting to make sure that we're not only being heard, but it being actioned on as well. We love that. We have bi-monthly meetings with our check-in person, Steven, he's great too. Just to see like, hey, what's going on? Oh, nothing's wrong with the platform. Great, let's talk in another month and a half. Like that kind of like, oh, that's different. That's great though.
Well, I think that's pretty undervalued and underrated in this particular industry. I think if you look at property management, because it feels I don't know if outdated is the term, but we are up against a lot of really strong older firms that haven't really taken on technology the way that the younger, newer management companies have. So to have something like this, like VendorPM, to implement in the early stages allows us to build the infrastructure needed for success, instead of backpedaling 6 months to a year down the road. And not to mention, like, the ease of use is amazing. Like, you could be an older firm and take on this software, and just the visual aspect of it, and like you said, having a dashboard and analytics are so important, and even keeping records for we had touched on this before, but for jobs that were done, because ideally if someone does a good job, you want to keep using them, but if you don't remember who it was, then you've now started the process all over again. And
well, and from the property management perspective too, like we've all experienced it, and every manager that's watching this out there, I can guarantee you they've experienced this too, where, okay, you're taking over a property from some other manager or vice versa, and the owners are like, oh my God, we loved, who did the doors 5 years ago. And you're like, oh, great. Who was it? And they're like, I don't know. And you're like, I don't know. Like,
it was David. Oh, great.
And then you're just kind of in this awkward moment of like, especially if you're with the same company, it doesn't make you look good, because now you're like, oh, your company doesn't keep internal records or not keeping internal records.
And even for like, say, a board meeting, because you have to bring several quotes to the table. And I mean, theoretically speaking, it's really easy to do. You just call 3 different businesses, tell them what you need, and they quote. But a lot of information gets lost in translation. You are trying to foster a relationship with a vendor you've never met before. You have no idea what their work is like. No one's going to tell you they do crap jobs, right? So having that online to say, okay, you guys are certified, you've got insurance.
And there's reviews too, which is really awesome. Like reviews from other management companies, so we know they're not fabricated.
Exactly.
Right. And then you print that off and you bring it, and you've got all
Save me hours.
She's really happy.
Amazing. Yeah, there's 2 pieces in that. One is the 3 bids, and the second is the system of record. So I'll dissect that a little bit more. But early days, because things are moving so fast, you have no choice but to stay focused. The same way that both of you are focused on delivering incredible customer service, incredible customer experience. That's why you will win, and we have to stay focused. So for us, early days, we were just focused on getting property managers, especially maybe those that are stuck in their maybe old school ways, to start requesting all of their quotes through VendorPM. And that's all we were really focused on. And then, we were talking to some property managers that were using it, and they stopped using it. We're like, what happened, right? And this is the whole 3 bids piece. They go, well, I didn't get my 3 bids. And so that became the core focus for us, is we realized that, especially for some of those, maybe less technology driven property managers, the way that the way that they see value in VendorPM and they continue and expand their usage with VendorPM is they get 3 bids, right? So it was interesting. At the time we had this discovery, we looked at the data. Only 15% of all of the RFQs and RFPs on VendorPM were getting 3 bids. Why? Because we weren't focusing on it. Today we're over 90% of RFPs and RFQs get 3 bids, and the ones that don't, it's because they're tertiary markets and very really specific services, but we're still getting at least 1 or 2 bids. So that piece is important. And then, the system of record piece, I love that you brought that up. When we're demoing a big management company, they're looking at this, and then I show them the system of record, and how you could easily just click at this property and this status and this service and all this. You see all this historical information. I say, if I were to ask you, I'm going to use an example here. If I were to ask you to show me the 3 bids that you got for, I don't know, landscaping in 2018 at this specific property, how do you go about that? And they go, well, I got to figure out which manager was there at the time, because I can promise you they're not anymore. Then I got to go into a deactivated email and find the 3 bids that they probably didn't even get.
Yes.
And I'm like, exactly. So VendorPM guarantees you those 3 bids. And then of course you have a system of record where, let's just say that manager leaves and goes to Bloom & Co. because it's an amazing company, right? And then someone else comes in. Well, then all of a sudden they have access to that entire historical system of record where they could see every single scope of work, who bid, who was invited, the price awarded, like everything that you need at your fingertips.
Yeah.
It is pretty, I mean, revolutionary is a really aggressive term. Like, it is like,
there's nothing else on the market that was like that, privy to it. And I think that's
we've never seen anything that is all in one package. Like, you don't have to go to several different places. It's all here. And even like Michaela mentioned, like the customer service, like we have like, I think Danielle, I can't remember her last name, but like her and I called her like 6 times one week. And then she was chatting about her dogs. And I was like, how's your dad? What's everybody doing? And then he's awesome and he's so like personable. So it does kind of take away that clinical, just like a transactional experience. And
which is exactly what we've been trying to say with Bloom & Co. is, you know, people, like you've probably heard, some people have like a bad taste in their mouth for the word property management or property management specifically. Because, you know, they're like any industry, there's bad eggs out there that have unfortunately tainted that. And what we really want to do with Bloom & Co. was, like we said, take away from the clinical of it. Like, it's not just I manage your property, you pay me, we don't talk, we don't have a connection. The reason why we were doing so well privy to starting our own business was because, like, you can be personable with people and you can have a relationship with people and still be a business transaction. And that's really what we wanted to do. And it's really nice when we found VendorPM, found somebody who not only says they align with that, but actually exemplifies it. That was nice. Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, I think look, at the end of the day, I think you're out to lunch if you don't think this industry is moving to a place that's more driven by technology and less with pen, paper, and Excel. Like, it's just reality. And at the end of the day, when I think about Bloom & Co., and there's select firms out there as well, they understand that they want to be on the right side of history, and they know what it's going to take. It's, you know, I think everyone's starting to awake to it, but there are still some groups out there that are so reluctant to change and reluctant to technology. And I'm literally sitting here saying, sure, you're in this position now, but what happens when Bloom & Co. is winning buildings left, right, and center because they're delivering an incredible experience, because they've driven such great efficiencies with technology? Like, there will be change. It may take some time, but this is what it's going to take to win. And it's why I have conviction that Bloom & Co. is going to be a massive player.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. No, we appreciate that.
You heard it here first.
Yeah.
So speaking of future conviction, I got to ask, like, where do you see VendorPM in the future? Let's say 10 years, 5 years, that time frame.
Yeah, I think, listen, I mean, there's so many different paths this can go. And one piece that was important is I wanted to be able to move quick. I didn't want to be in a position where, you know, we have this dream, but it's going to take 10 years to get there. No, like, we need change and we need it now. So a big piece of raising a lot of capital, I mean, like, after this raise closes, we will have raised about $30 million, is so that we can listen to our customers and move fast, right? So geographically, we want to have expanded throughout all of the US and all of Canada within the next 3 years is what we're targeting.
And sorry to interrupt, where are you currently expanded to right now?
So we're operating across every single city in Canada. And then we've just launched Chicago as of a few weeks ago. And thank you. And we're in the process of launching DC. That's going to be our second US city.
Excellent.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. No worries. And then, to your question too. I mean, look, the way I think about it is, anytime the word vendor, or anytime you think about vendors and any single workflow or task or process associated to that, there's no question in your mind. You're like, VendorPM. Like, we want to define that category. And so that's how we think about it, right? Like, today you're using VendorPM to plan and schedule all of your services and contracts, using it to manage your vendors, the compliance aspect that we talk about, workers' comp and COIs. You're sourcing new vendors in our marketplace, to your earlier comment too, that are peer reviewed and vetted. And then of course you're procuring your 3 bids, right? Well, there's so much more to be done here. We're building out payments right now. So we're going to be able to digitally pay vendors through VendorPM. We want to be able to guarantee them payments. I don't want to say in how fast, but it will be very fast. We want to be able to guarantee them payments quickly. Contract management, POs, the list goes on and on and on. But I'll tell you this, there's certain pieces that are set in stone in the near term, such as the payments and factoring of accounts receivables.
Yeah.
But I don't want to sit here and be prescriptive and say we're going to do A, B, C, and D. It's all about research with property managers and with your users. You need to listen to the market, and that will guide your roadmap. And so it can change very fast. That's why I can't say this is exactly how it's going to look in 5 years. The only thing I know is that anything that touches vendors, there's no doubt in your mind. You're like, okay, I'm going to VendorPM. There's no other option.
Excellent.
No, love that.
But I want to ask you the same question, if it's okay. How do you think? I mean, it's so early at Bloom & Co. and you're doing such amazing things. But when you were talking about your why and your purpose, and so when you think about that in 5 years, what do you see?
Honestly, we've talked about this so many times, and right now it's
Take
just
over the world.
Yeah, like our why, which now, and anybody who's watched this, we've talked about it before too, is really to change the game in property management. Like, we want to take out the clinical. We want to really make a connection with owners and show them that you can have a relatable property manager. You can enjoy having property management on your property. Like there's we can go on and on about other firms and everything, but we really just wanted to make a difference and show people that
Yeah, and I think service wise, adding so there's the basic property management services, residential, commercial, and condominium, which those are the 3 core services we'd like to kind of update and add that experience to. Ultimately, it's your investment, which is pretty personal. But I also think the market for short-term rental management is pretty underrated. You've got the big dogs in it, right? But that's definitely something we're interested in, and we've delved in a little bit, especially up in the Muskoka region.
Yeah.
So I think ultimately we would like to keep on building the adequate infrastructure so it supports us in our growth. Change the game for the preliminary management styles that are already in existence, and then up the ante by taking over the short-term rental world and making it cohesive. You can have this and you can have this. There's no reason you shouldn't have to forego something because someone 30 years ago said this is how it's going to be. So I mean, it's similar to VendorPM, right? Basically, it's kind of like recall recognition. You say property management, someone says Bloom & Co. You say vendor relations, someone says VendorPM. So I think that's where we're kind of on the same page there.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But this has been a really great conversation. I'm really excited to continue our professional relationship with VendorPM.
Yeah.
But definitely will recommend to everybody that we've already haven't recommended to.
We appreciate that. Thank you.
Of course.
Know you're a busy man right now, getting all that capital.
For taking this time your day to chat with us and just kind of get more insight into what the market looks like for you and how you guys can ultimately benefit all property managers alike out there.
Amazing. Well, I can't wait to do another one of these in a year when we're talking about, Bloom & Co. is 20x in size and in all these markets, because I have no doubt that will be the case. And as long as we all stay focused and keep doing what we're doing, we're all going to get there.
Agreed. Yeah, likewise.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Likewise. Awesome, guys. Have a great day.
Have a great day.